Many people dream of traveling to different parts of the world. It's an exciting prospect. But what if that dream trip turns into a nightmare? In today's movie summary, a group of friends faces a terrible plane crash. See how they manage to survive. Brandon wakes up from a scary dream, realizing it's already morning. He gets dressed, has breakfast, listens to announcements, and reads the newspaper before deciding it's time to go. At the airport, two guys, Kyle and Jed, chat near the exit, waiting for Jed's girlfriend, Ava. She shows up unexpectedly with her family's guard, Brandon, carrying his things. Jed is surprised when Ava says Brandon is joining them on the trip and apologizes. Kyle talks to Brandon, mentioning that every situation could turn violent, and jokingly points out a few people at the airport. Meanwhile, Ava keeps talking to Jed. He tells her that her family doesn't need to be involved in everything. Ava assures him that they'll mostly see Brandon from behind since he's always with them. Ava kisses Jed, and Brandon gives his phone to Ava because her dad wants to check on her. Marty and Hank, accompanied by their granddaughter Rosa, navigate through the bustling airport, arranging their belongings for the journey ahead. Amidst the preparations, Marty remarks to Rosa that she's beginning to resemble her mother as she grows older. Walking alongside, Marty hints to Rosa about a surprise she has in store, leaving the young girl curious about their destination. As they stroll through the terminal, an observant airport employee recognizes Ava as the daughter of a governor. Meanwhile, Hank and Rosa engage in conversation, but Rosa accidentally drops her cherished teddy bear. Nearby, Ava, Jed, and Kyle discuss Ava's career path in law, with Ava expressing discontent with her current job choice. Jed probes Ava about self-discovery, to which she responds with a desire for their upcoming vacation to serve as a respite from the pressures of school rather than an interrogation. In her frantic search for the missing teddy bear, Rosa collides with Ava, causing coffee to spill onto Ava's attire. Startled by Ava's reaction, Rosa scurries back to Hank for comfort. Recognizing her own overreaction, Ava feels remorseful and decides to take matters into her own hands, searching for the teddy bear herself. Relief washes over Rosa's face as Ava returns the recovered bear, restoring a smile to the young girl's face. After their initial interactions, Ava approaches Brandon, reminiscing about their shared childhood and expressing gratitude for his enduring companionship into adulthood. As passengers settle into the airplane, Steward Danilo warmly greets everyone as he enters. Walking down the aisle, Brandon realizes they passed their seats, but Ava explains they'll sit separately as they boarded from the rear. During takeoff, Danilo demonstrates safety procedures. When Kyle mocks him, Ava quickly intervenes, putting an end to his teasing. Later, when Kyle requests a drink, Danilo jokingly pretends to spill it on him, leaving a satisfied smile on his face as he continues his rounds. Meanwhile, Rosa and her grandparents enjoy playful bonding throughout the flight. As they settle in, Ava notices the limited number of passengers on board. Kyle jokes about the plane's age, suggesting that's why it's not full. Jed explains that it's simply an unpopular date for flights. Kyle continues with his jest about the plane's fragility. Shortly after, birds enter the jet engine, causing some turbulence and concern among passengers. The staff quickly reassure everyone, but Rosa notices the engine slowly breaking apart. Alarmed, she points it out to her grandmother, prompting panic as everyone hastily fastens their seatbelts. Suddenly, a section of the jet engine struck one side of the plane, causing a breach. Passengers who weren't wearing seatbelts were tragically sucked out due to the intense pressure, and attempts to rescue them proved futile against the powerful vacuum. A stewardess also got caught in the suction while trying to aid a passenger. In the midst of chaos, Brandon and Ava exchanged a solemn glance as the plane descended rapidly. With a deafening crash, the aircraft plummeted and crashed into the sea, claiming casualties among the passengers. During the fall, Brandon was struck by a small piece of metal in the chest, and Kyle suffered a broken hand upon impact. As the airplane gradually sank, the middle section filled with water, while the rear remained above the surface. Danilo entered and inquired about everyone's condition. Amidst the wreckage, Brandon emerged from the water, carrying Marty and Rosa. Swiftly, he removed the lodged metal piece from his chest. Tragically, Marty lost consciousness and drowned. In a desperate bid, Danilo performed CPR on Marty, successfully expelling water from her body and saving her life. Amidst tears and anxiety, they inquired about Hank, and Brandon sorrowfully confirmed his passing. Despite the grief, Brandon's reassurance calmed them. Brandon proposed they stick together in the airlock for safety. Danilo mentioned the pilot had communicated with authorities before the crash, so help should be on the way. Kyle, overhearing, expressed optimism about their rescue. But Brandon disagreed, emphasizing the need for caution in uncertain circumstances. Concerned about their diminishing air supply, Brandon instructed Danilo to search for an air tank. Despite their efforts, they couldn't locate one. Marty suggested they utilize an oxygen tank from a nearby passenger. Before submerging underwater, Marty asked Brandon to retrieve Hank's cap. With courage, Brandon dived, secured the oxygen tank, and found the cap. Suddenly, a shark attacked Brandon through a breach. He bravely fought off the predator, sustaining injuries, but returned with the oxygen tank and cap. Before being pulled back into the water, Brandon advised Ava to stay safe, apologized, and bid her farewell. Witnessing Brandon's struggle, Ava recoiled in shock and sadness. The sight of Brandon's ordeal left them shaken, retreating in fear and sorrow while Ava wept for his plight. Marty, sensing a dip in the group's morale, proposes they wait and strategize. They shift their focus to Kyle's injury, and as they attempt to straighten his broken bone, he screams in agony. Meanwhile, a rescue helicopter is dispatched to locate the crash site. The radio operator emphasizes intensifying the search because one of the passengers is the child of a governor. Jed engages Ava, suggesting they take decisive action. However, Ava insists they wait for rescue to avoid Brandon's fate. Shortly after, water pressure weakens the airplane, causing water to seep in. Despite Jed's repeated urging for action, the group opts to wait, continuing to reminisce about their departed loved ones. Tears flow freely as they share cherished memories. As they converse, they notice the water turning bloody, indicating sharks feeding on the corpses of their loved ones. Above them, rescue helicopters scour the area. Suddenly, a shark collides with them, seeking entry. Danilo inquires about their remaining time, and Ava estimates they have 3 to 4 hours left. The plane emitted buzzing sounds, but Danilo brushed them off as insignificant. Jed, however, rolled his eyes, indicating his skepticism. When Danilo noticed Jed's reaction, he remarked that Jed didn't trust him because he was just a steward. Jed retorted, citing his engineering degree and highlighting the fragility of the airplane compared to a submarine designed for underwater conditions. He warned that the plane could give way at any moment, allowing water to flood in. Shortly after, the lights inside the plane dimmed as it continued its descent. They found themselves near the edge of a seamount, with even a slight movement potentially causing them to plummet to the ocean floor. Malfunctions plagued the interior of the aircraft as it assumed a steeper angle in their new position, signaling a dangerous situation. Recognizing the peril they faced, Ava suggested they had no choice but to attempt swimming upward. Jed expressed concern about the sharks, prompting Rosa to recall what they learned in school about shark behavior. She shared that sharks are afraid of bubbles, offering a potential defense mechanism. However, Jed interjected, emphasizing their inability to rise to the surface without air. They deliberated on potential solutions to their air shortage, but none seemed viable. In an attempt to buoy their spirits, Ava pledged to brainstorm a method for ascent. She excused herself under the guise of using the restroom, but in truth, she sought solace in tears while clutching a photo of herself with her mother. Meanwhile, the ongoing search efforts of the rescue helicopters eventually bore fruit as they pinpointed the crash site. They promptly dispatched 2 scuba divers who spotted the airplane teetering on the edge of a seamount. Noticing the illuminated cockpit light, they swam closer for investigation. Back with the group, they persisted in scouring for potential aids for their ascent. Sensing Rosa's growing unease, Ava stepped in to reassure her, offering comforting words of survival. Moments later, the arrival of the 2 scuba divers infused the entire group with newfound hope. As one of the scuba divers signaled to them, a sudden shock struck the group as they spotted a shark. It swiftly attacked, dragging the scuba diver underwater. The group was once again engulfed in fear upon witnessing the diver's bloody severed leg. The 2 soldiers within the plane departed, believing the scuba divers could handle the situation as the airplane had run out of gasoline. Meanwhile, inside the aircraft, Ava and her companions brainstormed escape plans. Ava suggested using the scuba tank from one of the deceased divers. She dived down to the submerged part of the plane to search for the body. Upon resurfacing, Jed inquired about her findings. Ava, uncertain, dived again to double-check. Emerging once more, she confirmed she had found something. Simultaneously, Jed accidentally fell into the water but managed to stay afloat. However, a shark took notice and began pulling him underwater. A frantic rescue attempt ensued, but the shark managed to sever one of Jed's legs. Screaming in pain, Jed's anguish filled the air. Marty guided Rosa behind a curtain, cautioning her not to approach the water. Marty swiftly came to Jed's aid, providing initial first aid for his severed leg. Concerned about the severity of his injury, Jed questioned Ava, and she reassured him that the bleeding had ceased. However, when Marty explained that he had lost his leg below the knee, Jed, torn between tears and laughter, processed the shock. Marty covered the injured foot while ushering Rosa away. Danilo took charge, rearranging cabinets and accessing the back compartment, handing a flashlight to Ava. Ava indicated that the sought-after languages were on the right side. As she descended, an unexpected encounter with an octopus startled her. Ava resurfaced holding one of the languages, realizing there were only 4 masks available. Kyle observed Jed looking pale, prompting Ava to check on him. In their conversation, Ava reminded Jed of his dream to visit Alaska, assuring him they would fulfill that dream soon. Jed, responding with skepticism, pointed out that Ava always said that. Ava insisted that this time, it's for real, expressing apologies for leading him into this perilous situation. While conversing with Jed, Ava noticed something peculiar on the window, and suddenly, they were all startled by a strange noise emanating from outside. Marty instinctively checked Jed's pulse, apologizing to Ava in the process. Confused by Marty's apology, Ava glanced at Jed, only to discover him lifeless. In a desperate attempt, Ava commenced CPR while tears streamed down her face, but Danilo intervened, recognizing the futility of their efforts. As Ava grieved, she expressed guilt over Jed's demise, believing it was because of her. She lamented Jed's bravery, contrasted with her own perceived lack of courage. Marty draped a jacket over Jed's body as the airplane continued to deteriorate, generating more noise. Ava, sensing the urgency, urged her companions to evacuate immediately. Kyle voiced concern about the potential threat of sharks, but Ava proposed utilizing bubbles, as Rosa had mentioned, along with the gas canisters for breathing. With an abundance of canisters available, all they needed was to secure scuba protection for their escape. Ava noticed Kyle's distress and inquired about his well-being. Kyle struggled to recount a traumatic incident from his past when his father took him to a swimming pool. While diving deep, Kyle encountered trouble, and despite holding his breath, his father didn't offer assistance, leaving Kyle to surface just in time. Rosa asked how long he held his breath, and Kyle responded, 2 minutes, to which Ava reassured him that it was enough. Despite the sudden noise, Ava continued gathering canisters for more bubbles as they pressed on with their preparations. Ava spotted sharks through the window, but she chose to ignore them, focusing instead on comforting Rosa. Rosa shared her dream of becoming a vet and then turned the question to Ava, who revealed her plan to return to college in October to finish law school. Inquisitive about their companions' plans after escaping, Kyle prompted a revealing conversation. Danilo disclosed his intention to marry his partner and offered Kyle advice on love, suggesting he choose wisely. Kyle admitted he didn't have any concrete plans except to consider himself lucky if things worked out. Danilo nodded in understanding, proposing they leave the area. After completing their preparations, Ava approached Jed's lifeless body. Suddenly, another noise startled them, and the plane began to shift. Kyle, overcome with panic, expressed fear as they slid downward. Ava attempted to reassure him, but Kyle remained anxious. Assessing the plane's condition from the window, Ava kept her findings to herself when Kyle inquired. Skeptical, Kyle checked the window himself and noticed the beginnings of cracks. Spotting a can of drink, he consumed it in an attempt to quell his panic. Despite the plane splitting in half, they managed to remain unharmed. Ava reassured them that they could still make it home safely if they avoided rushing. Taking charge of the situation, Ava proposed sharing the scuba tank until they surfaced, stressing the importance of decisive action. Seeking affirmation, she looked to Kyle for validation of her plan. As they deliberated, another noise reverberated through the plane, prompting Marty to implore Ava to care for her grandchild. Agreeing solemnly, Ava listened as Marty spoke to Rosa, reminiscing about their zoo visits where her grandfather always protected her from behind. Marty told Rosa that her grandpa was now a spirit watching over her. With tears, Rosa agreed, and Marty trusted Ava to take care of her. Ava told Rosa to pull a cord if they saw a shark and made sure they wore goggles. Before they left, Marty shared how proud she was of Rosa. Ava and Rosa went underwater, creating bubbles to scare away sharks. They faced one and successfully scared it off. Meanwhile, Danilo and Kyle did the same, but Marty chose to stay on the plane. She whispered to her husband to look after Rosa before her end came. Kyle noticed and tried to go back for her, taking deep breaths. Sadly, the shark pulled him away, leaving Danilo with no option but to leave. Ava and Rosa kept swimming, finding a lifeless scuba diver. They took the oxygen tank to breathe and were later joined by Danilo. Ava asked about the others, but saw only Danilo, shaking his head sadly. They shared oxygen and disconnected the tank from the scuba diver who had passed away, getting ready to go up. Suddenly, Ava pulled the cord connected to Rosa and Dan, letting them rise to the surface. As they reached the top, Ava saw a shark but managed to hide. Unfortunately, the airplane descended, causing Ava to fall down. She struggled to swim up, but eventually passed out. Luckily, her life jacket brought her back up. When she woke up, Ava looked for Rosa and Danilo, but only found Rosa's teddy bear floating. When helicopters came, they threw a rope to Ava and lifted her up. She felt relieved to see Danilo and Rosa. A soldier asked if anyone else was still there, but Ava shook her head. Rosa mentioned her grandma, but Ava confirmed she wasn't there. Rosa hugged her, crying. Ava gave Rosa the teddy bear, but Rosa remembered her grandpa's advice that it should stay with her during hard times. Feeling she didn't need it anymore, she decided to let it go back to the sea. And with this, the movie comes to an end. Thanks for tuning in, guys.